Welcome, everyone, to episode 127 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, and I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. And I don't have a clever intro today. I just want you to know that, as I typically am, I was in fact screaming in high heels right before I sat down in this chair. So I just know that, but I'm not in this call alone. No, who else is here with me?
Well, hi, it's Steve Guntley here joining as well. I also don't have a clever thing to say, but that doesn't matter because we have an exciting bonus episode for everybody today with a special guest who has dipped his toes into the waters of Full Moon, as well as some other really high-profile, amazing horror adjacent stuff. So who's joining us here today?
Sorry. You know what? Go. You know what? So no, Jason, this is perfect. You know why? Because we have done 127 of these, and that is the first time where I paused long enough to let our guests come in and start to introduce themselves. A man who needs no introduction, but he'll introduce himself. No, Jason Paul Collum is our guest today, writer, filmmaker, responsible for October Moon, the October Moon series, I guess we can call it. Safe Inside, one of my favorite short documentaries, Screaming in High Heels, which I prefaced before, and the author of a couple of really incredible books, Assault of the Killer Bees, and they made how many in Terabang? Which is a deep dive into horror franchises, which I'll talk about both of these books at some point. But Jason, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a fun one. I'm glad we're having you.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to do this. Amazing. I love talking about myself, and I love talking about horror. So,
so do we.
We have the perfect opportunity for you here. Yeah. We're excited to have you. We must confess, our episode took a couple of different forms in the way that we were going to address it, because at one point we were going to talk about everything related to the Massacre series or the Massacre extended universe, talking about all the Slumber Party Massacre movies,
the real MCU,
House Massacre movies.
By the way.
Yeah, exactly.
In my opinion, that's the real MCU. I don't care what Kevin Feige or whatever that guy's name is has to say about any of it. No, but the Massacre cinematic universe is really where it's at.
It proved to be a little too unwieldy for us to get into it, and we couldn't really devote to watching 9 movies, none of which are in our purview necessarily. But I did manage to find the time to watch the first 3 Slumber Party Massacre movies, so I would have a little bit of grounding on what we're going to be talking about. But really, we kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about this kind of amazing career you've carved out for yourself in and out of the B-movie world, so we're excited to have you joining us here today.
Yeah, as a kid, like, I dreamed of doing all of this kind of stuff, and it was never like the A stuff. It was always like the B-movie slasher picks, monster picks, like the low budge stuff. And to actually be at my age now where I've done a lot of it, written about a lot of it, it's looking. I'm at an age where I can look back at it now and go like, wow, I'm really doing it.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I was at Final Exam Trivia yesterday, which is a local event here in the city, an expert level horror trivia hosted by Ted Gagan and Michael Gingold that always draws a really great crowd. And there was a lot of people there yesterday, and the crowd was uncharacteristically packed with filmmakers and actors, even more so than usual. And I had a moment too where I kind of was like, man, like, a lot of these people have, if they didn't make something that I was into, they at least were one of the first, people to really write about it and to do these kind of deep dives into it. And here I am now sharing space with these people, being friends with them. And it was the same feeling of like, I'm now starting to realize, like, and I had this feeling when we had Brink Stevens on our show, where it was like, oh yeah, like, these were people I grew up watching, and, they always seemed a little bit more approachable and attainable as, B actors, which we use that word obviously with no shade. And it was like, I grew up watching these people and I love them. And now it's like, I'm friends with them. I'm collaborating with them. I'm doing these things. So I feel what you're saying, like, so much. It must be so great to be able to look back on your time in the genre and realize that you were true to yourself, as like, these are my interests, these are the things that I like, and I'm going to devote my professional time to this and now have this amazing track record that you show for it. Like you said, it was monster movies and stuff like that. What was the specific one that kind of, set you on the track?
Well, for me, it was actually, as a kid, I was a slasher movie fan, right? I liked the monster movies, but it was the
Ditto.
slasher stuff. And it was very quick backstory. As a kid, I was so terrified of horror movies that even trailers on TV, I'd have to cover my eyes for. I remember Friday 13th Part 3, that trailer. I remember the trailer for Return to Horror High, and having to just being terrified by them. And then around like age 12, 13, there was a double showing on TV of Friday 13th 1 and 2, followed immediately by Happy Birthday to Me. And something just made me want to watch those. And traditional to horror movies, I was babysitting. So I watched them, and and not only did I love it, but I was so proud of myself because I'd made it through them. I was like, wait, I can watch scary movies, right? And there was like a thrill to them. So that was kind of my those 3 movies were really kind of what formed my love and passion for the genre.
Amazing. Those are fun ones. Like I've yet to really have somebody bring up Happy Birthday to Me with any reverence, which it's surprising this far into the show. That's one that I really like, and I'm assuming you ate shish kebabs again after that. I don't know. You might not have.
And I met that guy, then the guy from the movie, not the one from the poster. I met that guy at a bookstore when I was living in Beverly Hills, and he came in and made a big deal. I made a big deal out of it. He was like,
truly, it needs to be said that Happy Birthday to You is the Jaws of shish kebab. Like, it absolutely is. Like, let's be real about it. Yeah. Not spoken of enough. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love getting started there. Slasher movies for me was a big one too. And I think it's really funny. This is a question that comes, I think, more from me and my personal tastes, because I think when you become a horror fan, and Steve can speak to this as well, you sort of pick a lane with horror. Like you might like the whole umbrella of the genre, but there's always something that's kind of your bread and butter. And for me, it was slashers. I know a lot of people who it was supernatural type horror movies, or maybe for some younger people who got into horror in the last 20 years, they have a reverie for found footage or something like that. But I have always had this obsession, and it kind of stemmed from like USA Up All Night and stuff like that, to where I always really was drawn to the movies of Brinke Stevens, of Linnea Quigley, of Michelle Bauer, and those people who are like, sort of have either already been on the show or are aware of the show, and maybe, stuff is in the works or whatever. Like, and so what I appreciate about your book Assault of the Killer Bees is that it highlights these people that maybe mainstream horror outlets might not be giving as much attention to. There are certainly like Scream Queen magazines and things where like Brinke and Linnea and Michelle were on the cover of, and we've talked about other people like Juliet Cummins or Elizabeth Caton, who we like a lot, who's been in a ton of these movies. And like, when I got my hands on Assault of the Killer Bees, it was like a book after my own heart, because somebody was treating these women like Jamie Lee Curtis, like Heather Langenkamp, like Adrienne King, like all of these people. So like, where did your interest in these types of scream queens start?
Well, really, it would have been the ones you just, Brinke, Linnea, and Michelle. Brinke in particular, because I kept reading about her in Fangoria magazine and some other genre magazines, but there was never a picture of her. So I just kept seeing her name over and over and over. And then at some point I realized that she was in Slumber Party Massacre, so I rented it. And that's what did it for me. Yeah. I don't know, and I was just always kind of drawn to those particular actresses. And when I actually met Brinke and then became friends with her, she is so insanely intelligent. It's ridiculous. I think she might be a member of Mensa.
Is she really? I wouldn't be
She might
surprised.
be.
I would not be
Yeah.
surprised. Yeah.
She has a master's degree in marine biology, and she speaks like 8 languages. And
Wow.
she's been in enough of my movies now where I've worked with her. I can hand her a script, she'll read it, and she'll respond, and she'll speak it on camera like verbatim.
Hmm.
It's crazy. So a lot of it kind of rotate. A lot of the other girls kind of rotate back around her, because I was starting to realize that the media at the time really just kind of portrayed a lot of these girls as bimbos,
Yeah.
right? Stupid. They take their clothes off, like
Killer bimbos, even.
yeah. They're just kind of like put them like one step above pornography. To be quite
Yeah.
honest, if you were alive in 1987, it was so looked down upon, the stuff that they did. But and yet when I was starting to meet these girls through Brink, I'm like, these are all like super intelligent people, and they're just working. They're all they're trying to do is pay their bills. So that's kind of like where the book and working for femme fatales and the documentary is, all that kind of stuff came out of wanting to change the public perspective of these women, because they're really, the majority of them that I've met, super smart, and also not necessarily what they portray on screen. Like they portrayed back then, they would portray themselves kind of like sex kittens, right? Like,
Mhm.
The nudie magazines, and like if you meet them at a convention, it was like the ooh, ah, and like the posing sexy with you or with the fans. But then you go out to dinner with them and you're like, oh, you're a whole different person.
Well, and
Yeah.
we kind of like brushed on it, but like there is an idea, especially as like horror is sort of matured and it's like its fans have kind of gotten older and are looking at it more reverently, that like there is kind of like a Mount Rushmore of final girls who sort of elevate, right? Jamie Lee Curtis is an Oscar winner at this point, for God's sake. Like we elevate a certain tier of horror queens, but then there are still the other ones who are just like the workers, who are just kind of like doing the job day after day, and they're not getting kind of the same recognition. So it is awesome to see them kind of get their due. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do on this show a little bit too, is like, let's shout out some of these women who have been working their asses off in these like minuscule budget like things for almost no money, for no acclaim. And they often get like derided in the media, and they're just jobbing it. They are just like showing up to work, and they have a good attitude, and they kick ass, and they do great work.
I want to piggyback off of that, Steve, about their attitude about it. It's like they treat it like a job, and it's like, and they're just, what I've found in a lot of the conversations that we've been having with people is they're just happy to be they're happy to be working. They appreciate the work. Like one of my favorite things, talking to Brink or talking to Barbara Crampton, talking to other people, is they didn't they don't look back on these things that they were in and look down on them or snub their noses at them or anything like that. It's like Brink especially has such a love for the stuff that she was in, and I appreciate that approach to it. Like, she's more than happy to talk about her entire filmography and to say, I was just happy to get the work, and I really love doing this. I love doing this. And that the fact that, they brought that attitude, because I will say, and this is not going to be a controversial thing to say. In Assault of the Killer Bees, I think the way the book is approached, it kind of tells the story of all of these different final girls and B-movie scream queens. I also have the book Invasion of the Bee Girls by Jewel Shepard, which it seems like Jewel Shepard, in the way she formulates her questions for the girls in that book, feels like she kind of looks down on the work that they did a bit.
Mhm.
And it unfortunately comes across that way. Listen, I love Return of the Living Dead as much as the next, actually more than the next person, most
likely true. Yeah.
But I feel like, the women are honest and they do answer the questions, but I felt like that book is highlighting these women, but at the same time, it's not really championing what they do, which I think is a distinction between that book and your Assault of the Killer Bees book. And I just appreciate that reverence towards these women and what they do, the hard workers all through the 80s and 90s who are just plugging away and getting these things made. I'm glad that it holds them up in such a light, like the way that it does.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask how old are you guys?
41.
I'm 44.
Okay, so you're within 10 years of me. I just know that at the time that book came out that Joel Shepard did, I remember she and many of the other girls at that point were kind of starting to burn out, and the business was starting to die. And I remember a lot of people having that exact same kind of sensation about the book, because she was starting to, and again, this is going back, the book's probably almost 40 years old at this point. I think I'm a 91 or 92. She, I think, was getting kind of bitter towards the business.
92.
And again, it wasn't just her. I think a lot of the girls were fried, and like the budgets were getting lower, the paychecks were getting lower, they were getting older, they weren't maybe necessarily getting the jobs that they'd once had, even 5 years earlier. So your perception of that book in particular, which I love, I still love it, I still have my copy sitting over here.
Nice.
You're right, it was something that people even 30 years ago noticed.
That's interesting. Okay, well, I'm glad that I wasn't like reading something into it that wasn't there. To be clear, I also still enjoyed the book, but I did feel like there was a little how should I say this? A little condescension that was maybe not even intentional, but was just sort of there. Like you said, times were getting strained, people were getting burnt out. And I will say that beside whatever negative I said about the book, I do enjoy the content of the book. And how could you not love this cover?
Right.
First of all,
yeah, come on.
I mean, it is
Incredible.
a phenomenal cover.
Yeah, look it up if you haven't seen it, folks. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, so, we are primarily a full moon podcast. So I would love to hear a little bit about how you cross paths with the whole full mooniverse and all the different roles that you've kind of played in that world.
And there's a rumor that I want to highlight and have a conversation about, to see if we can get some, find out if there's any truth about it.
Oh, have you talked to Brink? Is that why is this where that question is going?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, did you just talk to Brink? Because
no, it was like we
talked to dinner 2 nights ago.
Brink around it was probably like 9 months ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
Okay, yeah, this goes back a ways, but I have a feeling I know what you're going to ask me. All right, so let's just go back to so my introduction to both Full Moon and working in B movies goes back to Brink. I was 22, 23. I'd already met her a couple years earlier and had become pen pals with her. Told her I was moving to LA, and she said, well, don't. But she said, since you're going to anyways, make sure that you come to my house once a month. I'm going to make you a home cooked meal, because I know how 23-year-old boys are. Right. So she did. And when she would have these meals or backyard parties, she would always have these other B movie celebrities, which at the time I was like, oh my God, like, these people are gods to me.
Yeah.
Right. I walk in the door and there's Fred Olen Ray, there's Jim Wynorski, and, so I'm meeting these people, and one of them was J.R. Bookwalter, who did Dead Next Door. And aside, he just put out a movie called Side Effects May Vary. If you have not seen it, you have to see it. It is so fun and so gory and so stupid on purpose. And Brink is in it. So
cool.
So anyways, okay. So JR in turn introduced me to Dave Dakota. So I went in to meet Dave at Full Moon in his office, and he had just finished Voodoo Academy and wanted to hire me on as the publicist for that. And what had just happened was Dave had directed the movie with the intention that Full Moon was going to put it out. But even though it wasn't, I'm putting in finger quotes for those who can't see, wasn't a gay movie, it was as queer as could possibly be queer, right?
We did an episode on it fairly recently.
Yes.
Absolutely kind of quietly pioneering like queer softcore movie.
But it was not gay. I was to promote it as horror for girls.
Yes, exactly.
That was my very direct. He said that is the one thing. He's like, this is not a gay movie, even though it is. He's like, we're promoting this as horror for women, because then gay men can rent it or buy it and not feel like, oh, I can't rent this gay movie. And straight guys who might be a little questioning and rent and be like, oh, but it says it's for women, you know.
Mhm.
So
It's,
so it
it's
really
the Playgirl model. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Because nobody and Dave was very pioneering in that because nobody was doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there was a movie called like Gayracula, but I think I've never seen it, but I believe it borders more on pornography.
We brought up Gayracula. I'm pretty positive we brought it up in our episode for Dream Maniac.
Oh,
That
yeah,
would-
we might have.
around the same time, yes.
Yeah.
So so anyways, Dave had kind of been dipping his toe into the queer not queer field because we were all used to sorority babes, right? And sorority babes and the Puppet Master movies and all that stuff from Dave. And then around the mid to late 90s, I'm watching like Killer Eye and I'm like, boy, these boys are in their underwear a lot. You know,
They
and
sure
like
are.
and
The
if I
man's got a
recall,
style.
you know, he has a thing for tidy whities and white socks and white sport socks. You know, that's all the guys tend to match. And if you get the one like the king of the bad guys is in black underwear with black socks. That's pretty much the standard, right?
It's a black
So, but I just started noticing that kind of thing leaking into his movies more and more, just as a fan. And then he finally did Voodoo Academy. And so I had my directive to this is how we're going to promote it. And because Charlie wouldn't take it. Charlie was like, nope, too gay, way too gay. Charlie couldn't see that. I don't think Charlie understood. And it wasn't that Charlie was being a homophobe. It was Charlie didn't think that there was a market for it.
Right.
So Charlie only came at it from a business standpoint. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Because Charlie Ben, I think, adores Dave Dakota.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
of course.
But I think Charlie was just like, yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do with this. So Dave turned it into a mail order, and that sucker flew off. Like it was insane the amount of copies of that thing he sold.
Was it an MALE order?
Yeah.
Yeah, but boom.
So
You can go home now. You're done. You're done.
so that was kind of my start with Full Moon. And it was always, I never worked for Full Moon on a regular basis. I kind of got involved with the other Full Moon stuff through other people.
Yeah. That's
yeah. Oh, sorry, Steve.
Oh no, yeah, I think that's an interesting movie to jump in on because that's such kind of a transitional movie. Like Charles Band talks about that in his autobiography too. He's just like he kept getting the dailies back, and production assistants would come back and say, David's movies are getting really, really gay lately, and it's just like, let him make a gay movie, just let him make it, and it found its audience, like it really did. It was a small movie, like you said, and it didn't really play on like Blockbuster shelves or anything like that, but yeah, that mail order model really did help kind of make that something of a cult classic, and it is kind of a quietly important movie for queer cinema.
It is to the point where I almost said Voodoo Academy 2, and I would have to turn in my card for the show. It is not.
Obviously.
It is 2: Voodoo Academy.
Right.
The sequel that says the tagline of it says like the sequel to the most talked about horror movie of the 90s on the poster.
Maybe a bit of a stretch.
Maybe a stretch, but you gotta love it.
Yeah, but there's definitely something to be said for what David was able to accomplish with that movie, and then moving forward for being sort of like freed to operate within his own kind of subsidiary company and make the films that he wanted to make.
Right, and
so really
and
important for him.
And all of the movies that Dave was making at the time. So once Voodoo Academy was a hit, then we had The Brotherhood, and I worked on the first two movies of those, which again were not Full Moon. Those were Dave broke off and created Rapid Heart Pictures. But he kept that horror for women model because it was, again, I'm putting the air quotes up for those who can't see me, safe. Right. So Blockbuster Video picked it up. We made that movie for I think like $120,000, and it sold like Blockbuster bought it for like 1.2 million.
Wow.
And it was on their it wasn't just a shelf in Blockbuster, it was like the whole section. And all of a sudden everybody was watching these safe, anybody could rent the Brotherhood. It wasn't a gay horror movie, it was a horror movie for women. And so a gay guy could just rent it thinking it was just like an everyday straight person movie and enjoy it, but say, hey, it's not, it doesn't make me gay for liking it, And the number of people, I don't know back then how many people actually watched the end credits of movies, but people kept approaching me because my name's in it, right? And they'd be like, "Oh my God, you worked in the Brotherhood. I saw your name in the Brotherhood. Oh my God!" And it was happening so much back home, and people weren't renting it because of me. They just happened to catch my name, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this thing is huge." And so then Dave just kind of kept going with that horror for women model. In turn, I was like, with going back to Voodoo Academy, I was like, okay, so Dave is making these homoerotic movies, but there's horror for women, but nobody's making gay horror point blank movies, and that is where October Moon came from. So because so that's why, and I battled it out with Hellbent. Those, I was gonna swear, those people got Hellbent out into the theaters like literally like not even 2 weeks before we did. So technically Hellbent came out first, but we were neck and neck with them.
Again, we find ourselves with a Lambada and the Forbidden Dance and break in and beat street situation. What was the movie? What were the ones we were just doing, Steve, where we were talking about that?
Oh, I don't remember, but I mean, it is interesting. Like this was kind of an era where movies like The Brotherhood and Voodoo Academy could kind of cross over too, because if you look at what was happening in mainstream horror, like we were on a podcast recently talking about The Stepfather and the Stepfather remake, and then the Prom Night remake. We're talking about a lot of like mid-aughts remakes. People are getting extremely pretty in those movies, and like there's a lot of like kind of lurid sort of gazing at the male characters in a way that used to only be reserved for the female characters. And these are in like mainstream, like PG-13 rated movies. So there was a lot more of this kind of pervading the culture a little bit. And so you guys kind of found the right moment to sort of get in there and start making this statement.
Right. And being on these sets, it was, again, Dave has a thing. It's the guys who don't start out evil are always in the white underwear with the white sports socks, and the guys who the singular guy who's kind of the cause of everything and pulls everybody else into the chaos is always in the black underwear with black socks.
See, I just call that symbolism. Like that's to me like he's very purposeful.
Right. And they had to be shaved. These guys would show up on set with furry chests and off to the beauty department they'd go to get their chest shaved. And it's so because they had to look young, be smooth, and be very pretty. Almost like these beautiful men, just like you'd have these beautiful women. So it was
totally true. And they look similar. Like we commented on how you look at the cover of either 2 Voodoo Academy or the first movie, especially where they're sort of arranged in like one of those Dimension Films horror movies posters from the late 90s. But they are all these like strong jaw, like short, dark hair primarily, like shirtless, hairless men that all kind of look the same. And it is like, it's an interesting commentary because I, as a straight person who, would watch as a kid horror movies with like a lot of, exploitation and a lot of, topless women probably being taken advantage of and, being exploited in that way. Probably a lot of them were very similar to the point where an older, more discerning viewer would be like, I can't tell all of these blonde women apart. It's kind of how you feel with the Dave Dakota movies. It's like, I can't tell these hunks apart.
Yeah. And in Femme Fatales, and when I began editing, I was starting to do editing for Cinefantastique, and that's a whole other episode. I went down there. But we were prepping an article on Scream Kings, because some of these smooth pretty boys were winding up in all these Dakota movies, and then they get hired in other movies. And and then there was once Dakota kind of did his thing, and then I started to do the October Moon, and there was a movie that came out called Socket. And so this pointedly gay horror thing started. There were actors who started to become known for doing these movies. And so we were prepping Scream King articles. So the Scream Kings were kind of like not replacing, but a sister or a brother act to the Scream Queens. So
That's really interesting.
Very cool.
That's still not a distinction that is like levied very often, you know? And like we made a lot of strides, but there's still not much of a crossover market for like queer horror films, you know? Like they do still kind of tend to work in the periphery, even like A24 and like these big horror companies that are doing a lot to make things a lot more progressive and a lot more incisive. They're rarely dealing specifically with LGBTQ themes, you know, like they're not really tackling that head on. You know, and it's cool. It's fun to watch. We've watched a lot of Dave Dakota movies over the course of this show, and it's fun to watch the progression as like he tries to get a little bit more of this in every single movie. I think it was Shrieker, was it, where he had a character who just like introduces himself by saying, "Hello, I'm not gay. People think I'm gay a lot because of my hair and because of my body, but I'm not gay." Like that's literally the first line out of his mouth, and we laughed out loud at that because we're just like, yeah, this is clear. This feels like a rebuke. This feel like being like he's being told like, nope, you can't make your characters too gay. You can't make them too gay. So he's like, I'm going to address this right now.
You know, and there was a full moon horror movie. Full Moon started to catch on to this too, by the way.
Yeah.
So there was a guy named Devin Hamilton who made Bleed.
Yeah.
And as you recall, there was, I believe, a gay joke at the beginning of that movie. The guy's dressed up like a woman. As I recall, it's been 20 years since I've seen it. It's the
two guy. Yeah. He comes out in drag. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and we even did, I was in a movie called Bad Movie Police by J.R. Bookwalter. And he produced it. He didn't direct it. It was a TV series. And we played on the gay joke thing where it was like two guys who were straight, but, you know, we're like going off the party, but we're both clearly, you know, take our shirts off. This is back when I looked a lot better. Took our shirts off and, you know, we're going to go to a party and hit the ladies, you know, and get some action that night. And so, you know, it kind of became a thing in mainstream, like Will and Grace had come out. So it was just kind of like Chucky, Bride of Chucky, had the gay character. So it really was all kind of happening at the same time where it was okay to have like the friend be gay and be funny. And so like, you know, when they get splattered or whatever, really kind of the gay people became the black people.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the gay best friend became the person that you had to die sometime. Like you could be funny and we could like you, but you know, you're never going to make it to the end credits. So,
yeah, and you mentioned Jason this idea of Scream Kings and highlighting some of those actors who would recurringly show up in these movies, and you know, just like a lot of them are not household names, and I think like and I'm somebody who has a lot of genre knowledge more than your average person off the street does, and even I kind of say, oh, Mark Patton, and then it kind of ends there until other people are named. And even his documentary wasn't called The Scream King, like it's called Scream Queen. So it's right. And you know, I'm sure obviously that's tongue in cheek, although if you watch that documentary and you see sort of the relationship between Mark Patton and Jack Shoulder and David Chaskin and that dynamic, you know, it's definitely not a level playing field in that way. Who are some of the other people? Because I know there's been some who've popped up in either in Voodoo Academy or some of these others, and there's been and I know you mentioned The Killer Eye also, which is not one that we've done on the show yet, but one that I've seen. And I know the two, because it's really just like two guys in their underwear and Jacqueline Lavelle for a lot of its running time.
Sure.
And I know at least one of those two guys, I don't remember the actor's name, was somebody who worked with Dakota a lot, I think. But it's just, see, these they don't roll off the tongue like your Brinks and Michelle's.
Right. There's a blonde guy. It's cute. Rhett. I want to say his first name is Rhett. He wound up he actually went mainstream. He wound up going into, he was in Bring It On. He was one of the cheerleaders.
Yes. Yes. Oh yeah. No, what is his name? Tyson? No. Yeah. It's something.
Riley.
Yeah. Oh, Riley Smith was the lead of Voodoo Academy.
Yep. Riley Smith.
He was also on Freaks and Geeks. I remember him.
Bradley Stryker was the star of The Brotherhood and Final Stab. And he now, if you look at his IMDb, he's got like 200 credits, and he's in the Lizzie Borden TV series with Christina Ricci, and
Oh yeah.
he was just in Terrifier 3, and so that's the thing about Dave is Dave not only likes the way that a lot of these boys look, but has been good about discovering talent early on. A lot of these people go on to not like become big A-listers, but some healthy TV careers, you know. So he's got a good eye for talent.
I'm wondering if you can confirm any of this. There was an article I read once, and I could not find it again for the life of me. It was an interview with Dave Dakota, and I think he was being flippant, but somebody was asking about his casting choices, and he's just like, "Yeah, I was just seeing who was available at the bar that night." I don't know how true that is.
Dave held actual casting sessions.
Yeah.
And there were guys that he would try and champion, that he kind of saw as this person is probably going to go someplace. And he, to this day, still says his biggest mistake was not hiring Brad Pitt, who came in to read for Assault of the Killer Bimbos.
Oh, interesting. Which is funny because that movie is such a precursor to Thelma and Louise.
Yes.
Which would eventually be like his breakout movie. So that's funny that he had the same instincts that Gina Davis and Ridley Scott would have a couple years down the line.
Right. You know,
that's really funny. That's an interesting alternate history version of what could have happened. That's really interesting.
I'm assuming he would have been like the Nick Cassavetes or Griffin O'Neill, like surfer guy, probably.
Yes.
One of them. Yeah.
Surfer guy. Yeah.
Fun movie. Yeah. I like that movie.
I really like Assault of the Killer Bimbos. I actually watched it again a few weeks ago, just on a whim. I was like,
what did I
was bored, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch Assault of the Killer Bimbos. Steve and I both have the soundtrack on vinyl. We really like that one.
Yeah.
I have a love for Elizabeth Caton, and that was a real stretch. You talk about like unsung people who were just working.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody has to replace Linnea Quigley in those Vice Academy movies.
Look, absolutely. Yes. Why not? Now you made to shift away from Full Moon a tiny bit, just to indulge us, because I think I know Jared is particularly interested in this series, but you made a documentary about the Slumber Party Massacre movies.
Yes, I did.
This I'd seen the first one. I really loved it. And in preparing for this episode, I watched the second and third, and I was kind of blown away by this series. It's really unusual. Not just in the fact that, excuse me, not just in the fact that this is the only slasher franchise that's almost entirely written and directed by women. Well, that is entirely written and directed by women, which fundamentally changes the tenor of it, because it does on its surface look kind of like a regular like TNA slasher movie. But when you know that like this is being written and directed by women, it changes the entire context of everything you're seeing. So I'm just curious about when these movies kind of came onto your radar, and when you decided to make a movie about it.
So again, Brink Stevens was the reason I watched Slumber Party Massacre, because I was trying to figure out who she was. Right?
Yeah.
So loved it. And then part 2 came out, and here's the funny thing. You go back to 1987, right? I thought it was terrible. Part 2. Thought it was horrible. And so did everybody else. That movie, people were like, that is the stupidest movie I've ever seen in my life. But then I watched it again, and then I watched it again, and then I started watching it every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And now it's one of my all-time favorite movies. I started to get the jokes, because it is a stupid movie, but if you don't go into it not knowing that when Deborah Brock wrote the thing tongue-in-cheek, that you're like, oh, the whole thing's a joke.
Yeah.
The whole thing's supposed to be a joke, right?
Yeah.
So now I love the campiness and the color scheme, and really it's Slumber Party Don't Tell Brink. Part 2 is like, of the franchise, is my favorite. And I've met the whole cast. And so jump forward 10 years. I decided it was time for me to write my first professional article. So I decided I was going to do a retrospective on the franchise for Femme Fatales magazine. And I contacted all the ladies. I did this on my own. I did not ask the magazine first. And I got in touch with quite a few of them from each of the films, and, had to peed myself a couple of times while I was in there in these interviews with these, because I'm like, oh my God, it's like I'm here with these actresses. This is so awesome. And God, they were wonderful. Minus one person. They were wonderful.
Ooh, okay. All right.
That might be a conversation for some other time or off
Yeah,
camera.
I'll want some off-camera tea on that one. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
So somebody is pointedly missing from the documentary from part 2. I'll just put it that way.
Fair enough.
So, but I fell in love with these girls, and I did the interview, and I wrote this retrospective, and not only did Femme Fatales take it, they made it their cover story,
Oh,
and
amazing.
it became one of their best sellers. And then for the next couple of years, anything that I wrote for Femme Fatales became a cover story.
Oh.
So, but it all kind of stems back to that slumber party issue, and then years went by, magazine closed down, and then I was contacted by Cliff McMillan, who had worked at a company that was had put October Moon out into the bigger box stores. And unbeknownst to me, he had moved over to Shout Factory. They had acquired Corman's entire library, and they had the Slumber Party movies, and they had no idea what to do with these things. So they went on Google just to get some information, and my name kept popping up. And because I had done the retrospective, but over the course of many other years, I had gotten articles in more Femme Fatales and other magazines about Slumber Party. I just love the franchise so much. I just wanted to keep putting it out in the press so that the new generation would learn about it. Right.
Yeah.
And it actually kind of gotten Corman to put it out on DVD in like 2000 or 2001 because that issue was such a hit. So anyways, Cliff McMillan contacted me. He knew I was a filmmaker. He said, "You seem to be the guy that knows all the Slumber Party stuff. Would you be interested in doing the documentary for us?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I had to badger them into giving me a bigger budget than what they were going to give me. But I said, "Look, these actresses are 20 years gone, or 15 years gone. Half of them don't live in LA anymore. If we're going to do this, we got to fly these women in. You got to get me out to LA." So Shout Factory was very nervous about it because they did not understand what they had on their hands.
Right.
They didn't know. They thought it was going to be this trash dump movie like everybody else. It's a TNA slasher. Nobody cares. It's 20 years old. And I'm like, guys, there's a much bigger following than you're expecting. So I shot the documentary for them and for that trilogy set, and that came out in 2010. And it was a huge success for them. They did not see it coming. I'm like, see, I told you. And so that's kind of my story with that. And I got to, shooting the documentary was one of the best days of my life.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, I got to meet all of the actors, including Michael Villela, who was the original Thriller Killer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, oh my God, Heidi Kozak walked in. I'm like, how do you look younger than when you made that movie? And there's another actress. Nobody gives her any respect, or like she doesn't show up at conventions. I don't think anybody's ever approached her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's one of those people. I mean, I've really found that I enjoy talking about Friday the 13th Part 7 more than I enjoy watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's in that, and Elizabeth Caton's in that, and Bill Butler is in that movie. It's just that there are so many future kind of people who, kind of cross-pollinate with what we do on the show in Friday the 13th Part 7. But I think I've seen stuff with Heidi Kozak that's been somewhat recent, and she looked great.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised, I'm sure Deborah DeLiso was, probably had a documentary about the movie Iced being made at the same time. So she,
And Deborah's another one. Deborah DeLiso is they're so warm and sweet. And, Deborah even checks in on me from time to time. She'll contact me through Facebook. And so I kept in touch with a lot of these girls after these documentaries. And Hope Marie Carlton, if you ever get a chance to meet her, oh my God, is she one of the loveliest human beings you're ever going to meet, from Elm Street 4 and Slumber Party 3 and so the Stand and so many others. So Jennifer Rhodes, if you could get her on your show, I mean, talk about a hoot. She was the nun in Night of the Demons 2, and she was the mom in Slumber Party Massacre 2. And she's actually in the original TV cut of the original Halloween.
Oh,
she plays one of the nurses. People don't know this. I caught it. I just asked her about it a year ago, and she's like, nobody's ever asked me. So if you see the TV version of Halloween, she plays one of the nurses in the destroyed hospital room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
so anyway,
I was so struck by these movies, and I agree with you. I think part 2 was far and away my favorite. Like I was watching it just kind of like idly, like I'm like, all right, I better just get this out of the way. And then I got like really caught up in it. And my fiance walked in the room at some point. It's like, what are you watching? And I told her what I was watching. She's like, oh, I'm not that interested. And then immediately this rockabilly ghost demon with a drill guitar shows up, and she's like, all right, I'm locked in.
Yeah, you
And she
can't
sat down and watched the rest of the movie and
Slumber
loved
Party
it.
Massacre 2. Like that
it's
is a movie that demands all of your attention.
It takes so many wild swings that like I still don't fully understand if like, is this all happening and he's a supernatural ghost? Is this the manifestation of her trauma that's taken on this kind of wild form? Is this just like her doing all this and envisioning like it's just like they don't really answer any of those questions for you, but you kind of don't really need it. Like
right.
It's
I think it's supposed to be a dream.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got from Deborah Brock when I met her and interviewed her. I kind of got that, take away from it what you will, but the whole movie is just a dream. And that's why it's like, oh, the whole thing's a joke. The whole thing never happened.
Steve, I don't know if I've ever said this to you before on mic, but I want to be your Tokyo convertible.
You've said it before. I could stand to hear it a little more often.
If only. If
only.
What's really funny? Oh, sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just also really struck watching Slumber Party Massacre 3, which has kind of a reputation as like the weak link of that original trilogy. But I'm like, this is a movie where it's really important that you have women behind the camera on this one, because the violence in that movie is deeply upsetting. Yes. It's sexual in nature. The whole scene where I believe it's Maria Ford is having to offer her body and like basically telling this horrible like waspy little psychopath that like he can do whatever he wants to her as long as she is activating into this survival mode that is so heartbreaking. And the fact that it ultimately doesn't work for her is such an interesting statement. It's just saying like, yeah, you can keep capitulating, you can keep trying to like bend into these forms, but there's always going to be shitty men. They're always going to come out for you. You're not safe. It felt like such a stirring kind of battle cry of a movie to me. Like, even though like, its reputation is a little less fun than the other two, but I was like, wow, there's really something going on here. Like,
well, it's a dark movie. If you really look at it, it starts off as just like, oh, here we go, girls are going to get naked and dance around in the living room, and at some point the driller killer is going to show up and do them all in. But it takes such a dark turn. I mean, it's about rape, it's about child molestation, it's about PTSD. There is a lot more going on, but it's not as fun. Yeah, it's not as fun. I mean, the first two movies have a level of fun and jokes, and there really aren't a lot of jokes. The best joke for me in the movie is when the girl burns the carpet with the hairdryer.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Laugh. I still laugh at that joke.
And then there's little things that they do where they they'll gender bend by having Marta Kober, who is from Friday the 13th 2, show up as the pizza delivery woman, instead of having obviously like the pizza delivery guy in the first movie who gets his eyes drilled out by Russ Thorne. Steve didn't get a chance to get to it. I'm a little more well versed in sort of the sister series to that of the Sorority House Massacre series, and man, you want to talk about movies that sort of go off the rails especially once you get to like the Orville Ketchum ones. Like, those are intense too. But there's a big difference there, is that when you get to Sorority House Massacre 2 and Hard to Die, you now are in like, okay, well, now these movies now are being made by Jim Wynorski, and there's definitely a very broad silliness to them, especially Hard to Die. Hard to Die, we may never have the opportunity to cover it for this show, but definitely, if anyone's listening to this and hasn't seen Hard to Die, Jason, give us like a two sentence plot synopsis of Hard to Die.
Women go into a factory, get wet, have to change into lingerie, and then fight off a killer.
That is true. Although
Die
that
Hard
could have
style.
been a stock
Yeah.
answer for any of those. Yeah, Die Hard style, which is I
Right.
think is
I-
what has to be mentioned.
And let me tell you, I think I got into a little bit of trouble with Hard to Die when it came out. I was working at a video store. I think I was even still in high school when it came out. And as I would later find out, Corman or Jim Wynorski directed that movie, and they inserted a lot of Slumber Party Massacre footage into,
which is
and
one of the oddest choices. That there is flashback archival footage from the first Slumber Party Massacre movie in the third Sorority House Massacre movie.
Which are they're correct if I'm wrong, they're not otherwise related in any way other than just the similar sounding names. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
That's
it was
wild.
actually filmed as that one was actually Hard to Die was actually filmed as Nighty Nightmare. So there really was
a better title.
And even Sorority House Massacre. No, I got that wrong. Sorority House Massacre 2 was filmed as Nighty Nightmare. Hard to Die was filmed as something else, but now I can't remember what the name of it was. So the Sorority House 2 label was put on Nighty Nightmare because they felt it would sell better. And so there's no relation to the original Sorority House with Sorority House 2. It was that Nighty Nightmare and whatever Hard to Die was called at the time. Those were sister movies, right? So they weren't part of the Massacre collection. I think they got labeled as part of the Massacre collection after the fact. And just because when Corman put those out in the 2000 edition on DVD, they just called it the Massacre collection. But really, it's Sorority House 2 and Hard to Die that are the sister movies.
Yeah.
With that Orville Ketchum character. And the thing that I got into trouble for was I wrote to Fangoria magazine because I was so pissed off that they were taking Slumber Party Massacre footage, and how dare they, right, touch one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I felt really ripped off. So I wrote into Fangoria magazine about it, and they printed it. And then when I reached out to Roger Corman a couple years later, I was denied. And then I met Jim Wynorski at one of Brink's parties, and he had not only did he not have interest in knowing me, but he almost seemed like he was a little pissed off at me. And I'm guessing that maybe because my name was an article in Fangoria magazine. It was just a review. It was like where you write it with the postal zone, right? It wasn't an article. It was just like I wrote in bitching.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, I see Michael Gingold quite a bit. Do I need to take him to task for that? Like, is this something we should be holding a grudge about?
And just a quick mention of Michael Gingold and Tony Timpone. They, to this day, are gods to me still, right? Fangoria magazine, when I was 15 years old, was my Bible. Screw church. Like, I couldn't wait to get my hands on, like, I'd get the new Fangoria magazine and I'd be desperate for the next one, So I grew up with just like rainbows and sunshine with daggers, around the dimension of Tony Timpone and Mike Gingold. And I've met Tony many times over the years. But I've conversed with Michael many times, but I've never actually met him in person. So, but Michael Gingold, to his credit, every time I come out with some new project, whether it's the books or the movies, he always promotes me. I always get an article in Rue Morgue or Fango or whatever.
He is really good about that because he really helped to smooth the process of getting both Brink and Barbara Crampton on our show.
Yeah.
Like, I met Brink and was talking to Brink and having a conversation with her, and she was really polite, really sweet, but just sort of like, I pitched the podcast to her, and she was kind of like, okay, like, I don't really do a lot of podcast appearances, so, I don't really know how I would fit that in, but like, it's really nice. And then Michael came over, and the three of us are talking, and he's like, oh, you should do his podcast. And then from that moment on, her demeanor changed. And it was kind of like the same thing with Barbara. Like, I met Barbara and was talking to her, and Michael, actually, I had already met Barbara, and then I walked away. Michael brought me back over to her and was like, oh, I have someone I want you to meet. And she was like, oh, we've met. And I was like, yeah, we were just talking. And he's like, he has a really cool podcast, and we should do a Reanimator episode. And he's just like and then she was like, okay, like, it was just, he's like the best wingman at that.
Right.
I feel like I should always have him like on the leash, for anyone that we're trying, any high profile people we're trying to get for the show. I should just have him on retainer.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Well, and think of, for the people that I know, think of how many people Michael Gingold has met in this world, right? I mean, the horror magazine of our generation.
Yeah,
Right.
of
I mean,
course.
he's partied with, God, who hasn't on this plate? Who hasn't? Who doesn't?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's really true. And so I brought up Brink here, and Jason, now is the time for me to kind of rake you over the coals a little bit here and see
Oh,
how much truth there is to this. So when Brink was on our show, it was for Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama 2. And we were talking to her about how did she get involved as director, and she told the whole story of how that movie started. And she had mentioned you, brought up your name, which was how I then made the connection to you as the author of these books. And then was like, you had pitched to Charles Band, potentially writing and directing Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama 3. So I'm curious if that's true, and if it is this something that is still in the works, and how far along is the process if it is?
so okay. All it is right now is, yes, I did approach Charlie, and he was game. So all he did was he told me to write the script. I told him I could make it for a small amount of money, and that I now live in Wisconsin. So I explained to him how I'm able to make a film in Wisconsin for super cheap, with a crew that I've had for years and actors that I know very well. And I can pull from Milwaukee, I can pull from Chicago. He said, you have to have nudity in it. And I was like, he's like, where are you going to get your sexy ladies? And I was like, Chicago, Milwaukee, strip clubs, however I need to go out doing it. So
Also, there's plenty of good-looking women in Wisconsin, just for the record.
yeah.
I'm just throwing
Right.
that out. I'm assuming, I haven't been there in a bit, but
Well,
And if Bill Rebane can do it, Jason, you can do it.
right. And that's the thing too. It's like you say Wisconsin, everybody assumes we're all cornfields and cows, right? But there's, Wisconsin is particularly the southeastern bottom corner of Wisconsin. It's very metropolitan, big cities, lots of, we have Summerfest here, so it's way less farmy than you think.
Mhm.
So,
I went to Madison on a road trip, and I had no real expectation of Madison. It just was where we were stopping because of where it was in the road trip in terms of hours, having driven X amount of hours. I was like, we'll get a hotel room in Madison and we'll stay for a day or two, and we'll see if we can't kill some time. I had a blast in Madison.
mhm.
I loved it.
Party city, big party city,
Mhm.
college town.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I pitched it to Charlie, and he said, "Get me a script, and I'll tell you what I think." So the problem is, I got so bogged down in other projects over the last year that it really kind of, I started it, set it down, started it, set it down, went back to it, set it down, and that's kind of where I'm at. So it's about 75% written. Linnea, Brink, and Michelle are all written into the script, and I've contacted all three of them, and they're all game. Now, that said, like I might have to go through agents and work out, if I'm paying, it would pay them enough of what they'd want. And so so none of, I really need to be very clear. None of this is a guarantee that this movie is going to happen.
Oh, of course.
So right now it is in the script phase, 75% done. Then I will approach Charlie, see if he's willing to let me shoot the thing. And if yes, then we've got Sorority Babes Part 3.
Awesome. I only have one question / request, which is, can I do the voice of the imp?
You beat
can
me
you do
to
the
it.
voice of the imp?
You beat me to it. I'm just saying, I'm a semi-professional
You,
actor.
Steve?
I can do it.
That's my imp voice.
Do it again.
Fuck you, Steve.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
see.
It's a new spin. It's a new spin.
Yeah, I'm trying to channel Dookie Flyswatter with that voice, which I probably shouldn't. We should be moving in a new, fresh direction.
Well, but it would be the original imp, so I'd have to see. He's still alive, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I believe so, yeah.
I thought somebody told me he had passed away, but then I went on to Wikipedia and it doesn't say that he's dead. So, I will approach him to do the voice, but again, I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't know what he would want to do it, I will share that I am deliberately making it cheesy. I am deliberately trying to give it a 1980s vibe.
Great.
And it's the kids go to the bowling alley not for hazing, because we really don't do that anymore. I think hazing isn't so much what it was like it was back
Right.
when the first film was made. So this is just more a group of kids are like, hey, did you hear what happened 35 years ago? Let's be stupid and in our drunkenness, and we're going to go stagger over to the bowling alley and see what happens. And but it does involve Linnea, Brink, and Michelle if they do the movie. It does involve their characters way more than the second film did. So they're
Oh yeah, I
more
mean
directed
they were
toward
like a
action.
cameo in the second movie, basically just playing ghosts. So it's good to
Right.
know that they'll be more, involved in this one. And I obviously was kidding about the imp thing. What I'm not kidding about though is you better keep the usage of that main theme song.
From which one?
That
From the first movie?
from yeah, because she Brink used it in the second one too. I think it's the Here in the
Yeah.
Darkness, the
Yeah.
dun dun do 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 do
Oh
do
yeah,
like
that's a good one.
Yes.
that
Yeah.
tune is great.
Yes. So, and yet again, a lot of winks to the first movie. It very much honors, like it will mention the second, like we'll know that the second movie existed, but it is much more a direct sequel to the first movie and those characters and storyline. And we kind of expand on the storyline. And I'm going to try to bring Dakota in on it as an actor. He doesn't know this yet. So if he listens to this podcast, he's going to find out, but I'm writing a
Amazing.
role that I hope he'll take. So, because he's why the whole franchise exists.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Incredible.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and being so generous with your time and sharing all of these amazing stories.
Yeah.
Like we live for this kind of like behind the scenes, like B movie kind of dirt, and we love that. I feel like this is just such an underdocumented like corner of the film world, people just kind of don't pay attention to this stuff. And so we're glad that you were able to come on and share these stories with us. These are so cool.
Yeah. And I'll tell you real quick before you sign off.
Please.
I was also in Hell Asylum.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we covered that recently.
As one of the demon brides. I'm the one that rips the heart out of the guy and the editor in the back room.
You get the best kill, I think, in that movie. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the guy accidentally popped his knee out on doing that while we were shooting that scene. Not my fault.
No way.
Not my fault. He had to go to the hospital.
Oh no.
I did several of the kills in that movie. And if you have the DVD, that's my hand on the back of the box cover holding the ripped out heart. So
that's amazing. That's Danny's movie, right? That's Danny Draven.
Danny Draven, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we've had him on the show. Lovely guy. Yeah, we always really enjoy his movies.
And then I also did Deadly Stingers, which is now Mega Scorpions. I'm in it, and I was the assistant director on that too. So you'll have to have me back because there's some good stories I can tell you from both of those things.
Oh my God, we have to. Yeah, we liked Deadly Scorpions or Deadly Stingers a lot too. Like a really underappreciated, like that was a movie that really got screwed over by the post-production like release schedule. And then it got kind of remarketed erroneously as like a asylum movie about giant scorpions attacking a city. It's like that's not really the vibe they're going for, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We had fun.
I got lots of behind the scenes stories for those. So you bring me back and I'll tell you some dirt.
We'd love to have you back for sure. Well, are you working on anything right now that you want to draw people's attention to? Anything, anywhere that they can find your stuff?
Yeah. So I should say the majority of my product is available at makeflix.com. So it's MAKEFLIX.com. You would go on the other contributors section and you'll find me under B-Boy Productions. Or just maybe I can just type my name in too. I have Safe Inside 2 coming out in about a week and a half.
Hell yeah.
I have a trilogy set for 5 Dark Souls on Blu-ray with an extra documentary attached to it about the making of those shot on video crap classics. I'm going to be putting out a box set of my entire library in probably closer to Halloween, and it's going to have a book for celebrating my 30th year of doing this.
Hell yeah.
And I'm in a new movie. It's called What Happened to Dorothy Bell, and it's the first movie that I've been in that is truly frightening. Lisa Wilcox is in it from Elm Street 4.
Oh, awesome.
I got her the job. But it's true. It's a found footage movie, but it is like every time I've seen it and with an audience, people are like, they cover their eyes and they go like this they cover their mouths. And so if you can see What Happened to Dorothy Bell, I play a snooty librarian. I'm only in it for a minute, but I'm so proud of it.
Oh, amazing. So, okay. All right. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So, and then I've got a kid's book that came out last year. It's called Heads Up, So You Can See the World. And typically the horror fans don't you wouldn't think would go for that. But if you were a kid who was bullied in high school or were a lonely child, it's meant for self-esteem for little kids. So I would recommend checking that out. It's cheap.
And I know we have a lot of horror fan listeners who do have kids too, you know, so
Yeah.
that's a great way to kind of bridge that gap, you know. So
yeah, I would say listen to Jason and check out all of that stuff. I mean, I can personally attest for Salt of the Killer Bees and for They Made How Many, the They Made How Many book. I have to say, Jason, I was mentioned before playing Final Exam Trivia, you know, this sort of composium book of all of these franchises has actually been pretty helpful to me because these questions have some pretty deep cuts sometimes. And it's nice to even if it's one of the entries, kind of forgotten entries in a series that I haven't seen, I've at least read about it, and that's kind of helped me, you know, kind of pull a answer out of my ass occasionally at this trivia. So thank you for that. And if you're, oh, good.
No, I'm so proud of that book. It took me 2.5 years to compile all of the information. And anybody who doesn't know, it's just about if the original movie came out between the year 1900 and Christmas or New Year's Eve 1999, the entire franchise is included. It's like there's like 270 franchise or films in the book. It's almost 700 pages long. So people are like, it's a $35 book. Yeah, well, it's also 700 pages. So you could actually kill somebody with it. It's so big. You know,
and how many other books can say that?
And you know, and the thing that kills me about it, that nobody's ever done it. That's how it got made. I was like, wait, so nobody's ever written a sequels book about just sequels in general. They write franchise books about specific franchises, but nobody's ever just taken every franchise that exists in the horror world up into the year 99 and compiled it. So
made this handy reference guide.
Yes. So please buy it. I have to pay for my house.
I'm getting online right now. I need to get my copy of this because this is exactly something that like I'm interested in. Like I always love finding those movies on the video store shelves. Of like, wait a minute, there's a 2. Nobody who liked the 1. Like there's apparently a 2.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's Witchcraft 17 about to come out, and
that series will not die. It's insane. Yeah, that one just keeps going. It's outlasted Land Before Time at this point.
It did, you know, and although those Camp Blood movies are trying to outdo them, so
right,
I will tell people if you can get the second edition because there's an extra 50 titles in the second edition, and there's 2 more actor interviews because I also interview 30 plus actors and actresses who are in these franchises, even if they were in like a part 3, like Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. I've got one of the actresses from that movie. An interview with her and about her dad, who was the director of the movie.
Oh yeah, one of the interviews is with Stacey Nelkin, who's from Halloween 3, which is one of my favorite sequels.
Yeah. So check out the second edition if you can, because I have both editions up because the first one is cheaper, but again, it's if you get the second edition, it's got 50 extra titles and extra actor interviews.
Yeah, I am positive that you will find something to love in all of these books or films or anything that Jason has worked on. If you like what we bring to you every single week, the best way to show us is to go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, maybe a little review, you know, if you have the time and you feel so inclined to do so. It just helps improve our numbers, helps more people see and find and discover the show. We like for people to comment in Spotify comments. So if you're listening to the episode and we missed something, left something out, got something wrong, feel free to jump in the comments and you know, correct us or answer hypothetical questions that we might have, whatever it might be. The best way to keep up with us and just on the day-to-day know what we're doing with the show is right now on Instagram. You can follow us at puppetmasters_castlefreaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jared or Steve at Minotaur Matador. We update about the show on Threads and on Blue Sky, and we have the audio versions of the show on our YouTube channel as well. We will eventually, you know, make some other not just show related content, but it's hard because Steve has another show that he has to put a lot of effort into. Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, I'm also the host of a show called Cinema Arcade. That is cinema and arcade mashed together. That is what we do. We are watching movies and then playing the video games based on those movies to see how they compare, contrast, detract, completely go off the rails. If you're ever curious about what a video game adaptation of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo looks like, we are the podcast to check out. It gives us a great opportunity to talk about a huge range of movies, everything from The Emperor's New Groove to Lord of the Rings to The Hustler to Manos, the Hands of Fate. We've had Jared on to talk about Puppet Master and about Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm sure we're going to have you back in Halloween again for Halloween. Why not? There's a Halloween game for the Atari. It's insane. So we've got a whole bunch of things that we're going to be covering on that show. So definitely check us out. And be sure to tune in this week. We are going to be having our special episode on Metal Storm, the destruction of Jared Sin. Awesome sounding movie I have not watched yet, but as of this recording, we have not watched it, but I'm excited to check it out finally.
Yeah, it's an early-ish Charles Band. It's sort of like the direct pipeline to Empire. And above all things, we get to take a detour back into Tim Thomerson town.
Yeah, we sure do. We love being in old TTT.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite places to go. So thank you again to Jason Collum for taking the time to have this very fun chat with us. We hope all of you guys enjoy it, and we will see you all next week for Metal Storm. I'm not going to say the subtitle of the movie because I don't want to wish an impending destruction on myself.
Oh, yes, that's true. I'm sorry, Jared Sin.
Yeah.